There is an opportunity if you're looking for getting into training, a training program that you need to increase your skills in this area. Three of the different colleges, community colleges in the area, GLOW, or I should say Genesee Community College, Finger Lakes Community College, and Monroe Community College, all are offering programs that could be qualified for having you get a grant which pays for pretty much all, if not most of the cost for those programs. So there are a couple of brochures on the side table that if you didn't get one already, some of them have Finger Lakes contact information in there. There's another set in there, I think, that has some stuff for MCC contact. That's mainly the thing that I wanted to mention on that. Do you have anything?
I want to add something about that brochure. This $8,500 grant, or up to $8,500 grant, is very important for the members of audience here. Generally, a person who does not have any other college, who does not have college background, they may qualify for Pell, TAP, and other grants. But many of you already have some degrees in the background. And in that case, having this grant money is very crucial because you may not qualify for other options. So that typically covers the tuition as well as some other expenses for the 2-year training of the program.
If you already have a bachelor degree, what kind of these core skills, how many classes about what do you have to take and cost involved in that?
If you do come in with an existing degree, you sit down with me for precision machining, we're going to take a look, and you're not going to repeat courses you've already taken. All right, so if you've got the social science and you've got that stuff, that's going to roll in. We're just going to do a transfer. A lot of times I'll get folks that are coming in with some machine skills already. So we take a look at what do you really need. We can do some experiential credit. MCC's got a 50-plus program. We're working with folks who are for 50 years and older with degrees and or experience. So we are putting some stuff together. But again, the thing is, it's for an associate's degree. If you come in with a bachelor's, you may have half of it done already, and it's really only going to not take a year to knock it out. So that's a good question. It's important to know about this.
Is it true that the math skills that you're teaching are easier to learn than they were 30 years ago?
Well, the main issue that is pertinent here is the left brain approach versus right brain approach. Our visual processing in our eye, in our retina, has been going on for millions of years, versus written language, grammar, logic, etc., which is only a few thousand years old. The way math is typically taught is through left brain. You follow the rules, do the work, which is to some extent true when you want to convince somebody else. But when you are introduced to a new mathematics idea for the first time, it is a lot more preferable if you approach it from visual perspective, visualization. And we have software and other tools, as well as there are tools people have developed over the years to visualize, help people visualize every single math equation or concept. by doing that, one is basically tunneling from your right side of your brain to the left side, helping out the left side with respect to learning math, whether it is algebra, pre-calculus, or other work.
Interested to going to school, but not sure if he would be even eligible for some of these grants. And
Well, there is basically a two-part question. I'll answer the first part and then have Bill respond to the second part. With respect to taking individual courses, typically if you look at the number of credit hours, the cost is probably around $125 per credit hours. And with respect to eligibility for a grant and duration, the up to $8,500 assistance is for the whole degree program. It is not per year. And Bill's contact information is behind the flyer, so if you do not get all the information today, you can always contact him directly with respect to eligibility requirements.
So you're saying you have to be matriculated into a 2-year program to be eligible for the grant?
That's right.
And I believe you also have to be a full-time student, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes it difficult if you're working full-time.
And you want to advance yourself so you can get a job that pays more than $18 an hour, $20 an hour.
Yeah, most of the people I see in your position, really, the only thing they can afford is try to pick up critical courses in the evenings. Like I say, we're probably similar in cost, a 3 credit hour cost by the time you put all the fees on. It's going to be about $400. Now, I know sometimes there is some training funds available through the one-stops for individual training accounts. Whether that's available now or not, I don't know. That's something you'd have to talk to those folks about. But sometimes there is some funding.
Some of the course descriptions, where you mentioned you use MateLab, LabVIEW, possibly SolidWorks, those are all things that are common tools in the workplace. But to be able to take a course and develop some extra proficiency in those areas, now you can tell your employer, hey, we need this assignment over here instead of doing this. So $400.
And that way you don't have to matriculate if you're just taking a course or two here and there. The only thing you do have to do is you may have to have some prereqs before you can do it. But something like a SolidWorks we offered at MCC, it's a starter course for somebody who wants to, just like what you're saying, they want to become proficient in that specific software. So you could take it as a non-matriculated student and just pay the one-time cost.
So would I get a license as being a student, so I would have to pay $1,500 a year for a SolidWorks so I can practice it on my own and do these tutorials?
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but yes, they do have student copies that you purchase. And I quite frankly, I don't know the details of it. But yeah, you don't pay $1,500 a year for it. I think it runs out after a year. I think you get a student copy that after a year it expires.
are there layoffs after the contracts are done? And also, do those people tend to stay in that field or move on to something else?
I can jump on that. As far as from an Optimex perspective, no. When we hire somebody, we intend for them to be a long-term employee. We do not have layoffs that go along with whatever's happening. We have had a couple of small layoffs in certain parts of the business cycle, but it was more 2008 when everything was hitting the toilet. It was unavoidable. But for the most part, and part of the reason for our hiring process and our recruiting process is that we want an employee that, unless they screw it up, we intend to keep them and keep them gainfully employed. We also expect to continue to improve our business practices so that we can be profitable in the next market downturn and have less of a layoff the next time that the market, the economy tanks. Because it's gonna. It's just a question of when. It's a cycle. So but I know that's just an Optimex approach. I believe there's other companies. I know there's other companies in town who hire people in, and when the contract is done, they're letting people go. So it's a mixed bag there. What was the other part of your question?
Then if for people who are laid off or
Oh, yes, right. Right. I think I think that depends on the person's experience. I think there are people who who use that opportunity to realize that, hey, manufacturing's not for me. I'm going to go work at Burger King or whatever it might be. I don't mean to make a joke. Whatever they might choose to do. Something, I know we've had people where they did change careers when they left. But we've also had other people take other opportunities and continue in manufacturing.
Are there industry statistics on that?
I'm not familiar with them. No.
I think I can talk a little bit about contracts in manufacturing because that's what I deal with on a daily basis on a local level and on a national level. Rochester's very unique when we talk about contracts with clients, even though 90-something% of Rochester companies are what we call job shops. And basically what that means is they have salespeople who go out and bid for a project. It comes in, the engineers get it, they produce a part, it goes out, and so it's based on volume. They want the salespeople out there selling. And then there's about 7% of companies that actually make a product, Century Safe. They make a safe. They're going to sell a certain amount of safes. Their salespeople are going to say, okay, we want to increase by 3%. Can we put these safes in a Walmart? But the majority of companies are contract-based companies based on what they can bring in the door. Our job here locally, even though it's contract-based, a lot of our positions, almost all of our positions, are temp to perm. Nationally, when I talk to our other areas, they don't have anything that even speaks to that. It's temporary positions and then they're gone. Rochester's very unique. When it comes to manufacturing, I had a client last week lay off 10 people. Just out of the blue. What happened was their quality department messed up. It was for a very high-level profile company, so they pulled the project right from the client. So we had 10 people on Friday get laid off. They all came into our office. We gave a quick eval. We got back on the phones and got these people set up for interviews the very next week. That's how in demand these people are with certain skill sets. And if you can give a person or a client, someone who's good with math, who can use Mike's calipers, who can read blueprints, who can do the basics of a machine for $12 an hour, yeah, absolutely, we can find people those jobs, $13, $14 an hour. Absolutely, those are easy positions to migrate throughout the area. My job is to be on the hard pulse of who has projects, who doesn't have projects, and to kind of move all these people along while they all stay within our payroll. If they go perm, great, that's awesome. That usually happens. About 80% of our people go on perm, and then we have a percentage that just doesn't, but there's reasons for that. They don't show up. They have more excuses than we know what to do with, or they're just a bad employee. There's bad employees out there. So I would say that, yes, it's easy to find you another position.
Speak a little bit to it as well as our company. As I mentioned, we've been in business about 100 years, and I think we had one layoff, a very small one, in a downturn. Pretty much, it's pretty stable. You get into the business of manufacturing, it's pretty steady work. There is not a lot of layoffs and using people and then passing them on in the contract, even in contract businesses. We've been talking so much about the specialized training, how much it takes, and that only gets you in the door. From there, we as a company and most involved are going to spend a lot more time and money in workforce development and on-the-job training. This just gets you in the door. We're going to make a large investment. We want to hang on to you. So we don't use people on a contract basis, even though the company may operate on that premise. They try to keep them as long as they can. People who do leave, as it was mentioned, some people leave. There's not a fit at a company. They move. Bob mentioned how many machine shops are there in the Finger Lakes? You said 7?
Over 700.
Over 700. So what happens is somebody just decides, I'm not quite happy here. Maybe I'll try it over here. Or a friend works at such and such a place. That sounds more interesting. But really, people who leave an employer have options to go to another one. And sometimes they just don't enjoy manufacturing and want to move on to something else. But typically, I've always tell people, if you want to go into the field of machining, for instance, you will work as long as you want to work and make a good wage, simply put.
The only other thing I would just add to what Todd was saying, because we are predominantly a contract-based industry, one of the things I noticed in the last few years is how they've diversified their customer bases. These companies aren't working for one industry. They may be building military gun parts on one machine and medical parts on another machine, aerospace parts over in this area. So when one part of the economy tanks, they don't lose everything. They've really diversified that, and I've seen that as a big jump in the last 10 years, this real diversification of customer base. So I think that's helping keep it a little more flat line with less major layoffs than we've seen sometimes in the past.
Sure, they're in the local economy, you had Xerox and Kodak as gigantic drivers. There were machine shops that were just fabricating parts for Xerox. So when Xerox went bad, they had no business anymore. And I think that Bob's point is exactly right. Our customer base is very diverse. No one customer makes up more than 15% of our sales in a given year. So I think that that's something that the companies have done to avoid that up and down kind of hire them and lay them off kind of process.
I think I want to echo some of what is being said. Rochester area was highly dependent on 3 or 4 really large employers. And as a business ecosystem, that was a bad situation, because when they got into trouble, not just them, the company themselves, but the whole economy of the area suffered. The reason this area is doing better than many of the other areas in the country currently is because Rochester was able to undergo transformation from dependent on just few large employers to a whole ecosystem of various sizes of employers. So you have still large employers, but there are medium, small, and very small. And that type of ecosystem is highly stable in face of ups and downs of economic cycle than would have been the case with just few large employers. And each of the company themselves have become more adaptable. So we need adaptable worker for adaptable companies, which makes the whole local economy more adaptable to local and global changes.